Hello, everyone, and welcome back to In Her Shoes. Today we are talking all about chronic illness, and I have a really good friend of mine that I'm going to be bringing on. It's such a great topic that awareness needs to be talked about on this subject. And like I said, she's a dear friend, and I'm so excited. She's doing some powerful work in the world. And so all of you that either have a chronic illness or that maybe you know someone that has a chronic illness, this is going to be an episode that is going to be really, really powerful. So I'm going to bring her on.
Oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. Hi. Oh, I feel like it's been so long since I've seen you. It's so strange that it takes social media for us to like see each other, but here we are.
Here we are.
How are you?
Good. How are you, my love?
I'm good. Just working in the middle of a middle of a pandemic.
It's the usual.
The usual. Now it is the usual, which is crazy, but it's true. I'm happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to be here with you. I see some people joining. Shanae, Mandarati, Robin. Thank you so much, everyone. So this is Nitika Chopra. She's the founder of Chronicon, which we're going to talk all about. The Point of Pain, which season 4, your podcast just launched this Sunday. I'm so excited. And, I think this is such an important topic, and you'll talk more about this. 133 million Americans have some sort of chronic illness. And that's actually how we met. Has it been more than 10 years?
It's been, I just passed my 11-year business anniversary and we met before I started my business. So I think it's been 12 years.
Yeah. And that's how kind of we bonded, really. Because, right. We were like, oh, we both have psoriasis. You didn't know that. I kind of knew it about you, but I was like, oh no, I have psoriasis, girl. Don't you worry.
Yeah. I was like, who is this chick? And then you were like, I have psoriasis. And I was like, tell me everything. That's basically, if they made a movie of our first interaction, that's basically what happened.
Yeah. So bonded by the chronic illness.
Yes.
So I would love for you to tell everyone, whether they're watching live or the replay, just a little bit about your journey, because this has been your story for a while, and just everything that you're doing in the world, that you're bringing awareness and bringing the advocacy, because I think it's so needed and there's people suffering, so let's just start with a little bit about you and then we'll take the conversation wherever you want to take it.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. I mean, KL, which is what I call her, is one of my best friends, your family, and I'm also just so in awe of everything you have built with your business and your podcast. So I just have to give you some love to start off with, because I just love you so much and I'm always in awe of you. And I started my career 11 years ago, and I was really talking about, that's soon after we met, and I was really talking about self-love and wellness. And I talked about that for years, for 8 years, I was talking about that. And there's still an aspect of self-love and self-care that I always will talk about. But in about 2017, 2018, I sort of got to this place within myself. It was a little bit after that election in 2016 that rocked so many of our worlds. And I think that there was a reckoning that was the start of something that, would only intensify as years go on, obviously. But it was sort of the start of being there's so much turmoil and trauma in this country, in this world. What am I doing? Why am I even talking about the things that I'm talking about? And I really had to dig deep, and it really helped me see that chronic illness is something that I know more about than I know anything. And it's because I've been living with 2 chronic illnesses for the last 30 years, since I was 10. So I got psoriasis when I was 10, and then psoriatic arthritis when I was 19. And I don't know anything like I know what it's like to live with a chronic illness. It's the thing that nobody wants to be in that club, but it's the club that we're in. And I know it, and I'm proud of what it's taught me, So that was really something that I've been dealing with my whole life, but it took me a while to get the courage to talk about it publicly in the way that I do now. And in 2019, I launched Chronicon, and it really has just been, it's been one of those things where I feel like I came home in a lot of ways. Like everything that I do for Chronicon, whether it's something on our Instagram that seems like small and simple, or it's, the large live event that we had here in New York City, which you were at.
Yeah.
Or, today we have the Chronicon Community, which is our online membership platform. And we had an event in the community this afternoon, and it just brought me to life. It just does. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I've been up to.
And I love that. So yeah, the event was it last 2019?
It was like 2 years ago. It was like a year and a half ago, I guess, at this point.
That was so amazing because there was like people flying in, and it was just such, oh my gosh, the energy and just the speakers that you had and the people connecting and the awareness that was brought to so many. It was like, it was kind of like at the end of the event, I felt like everyone was family, and they were so supportive and people were connecting, and even on a deeper level, like it wasn't just like the surfacing, like networking. It was like talking about real, true, like struggles and how they overcame things. And so that's so beautiful. And I love that now it's like birthed into a community. So let's talk about that. Like, well, let's kind of go back, because if anyone is struggling, because there's what, 133 million Americans
that we know of. Like, I'm sure there's more, because people have a hard time getting diagnosed. It's not always, especially women of color, we struggle the most in getting diagnosed, which is just so horrible. The struggles that are in our healthcare system and our medical system. And yeah, that number, 133 million Americans, which I say all the time, I feel like, just broken records. Sometimes I'm always talking about that. But that's a number that I got in 2019 from the National Health Council. So that was even before COVID. That was before all the things that have happened in the last year and a half. At that point, they had estimated that by the end of 2020, there would be 157 million Americans. And so the fact that, we've had so much happen since then, I always refresh on Google, because I'm like, did they give us a new number yet? Like, what are we working with? But yeah, it's the reason why I'm so passionate about this work is because we are treated in society, whether it's through marketing or through, different ways that we're spoken to or not spoken to in our country, especially, we're so othered, it's really like this experience of, oh, those sick people over there. Even when COVID happened, right? It was like, oh, only people who are of a certain age or who have pre-existing conditions, those people. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm one of those people. You're one of those people. My mom, my, grandparents, so on and so forth. So it's a really, I think it's important. It's vital that we break that separation, that we don't allow people who are diagnosed with a condition to feel like they are the only ones, because they're just not. It's not true.
Yeah. So when your definition, and what is the definition of chronic illness, just so we get kind of grounded in that, because like, what would you say it is? MS, cancer, psoriasis? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, so the National Health Council also states that a chronic illness is anything that has persistent symptoms for 3 months or longer. So that's a lot of things. That is a lot of things. Like, as you mentioned, MS, cancer, diabetes, heart conditions, skin conditions, bone diseases. Like, there's just, it runs the gamut. And I think that's been some of the most interesting parts of me doing Chronicon, has been that in speaking out about it more, because I have such a defined condition, right? I have psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, which doctors are able to diagnose, not for everyone easily, but for me, I got a diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's not the case for everybody. So a lot of times people, have a struggle even owning it themselves, that they're maybe going through something, which has been a huge part of my Chronicon journey, is like realizing that there's that going on too. So yeah, so it's a lot of things.
Yeah. Let's talk about your community, right? Because like you said, there's some people that either are in denial, or they're like, oh my gosh, now this is part of my identity. How do I, right? Like, is there a community? And I just love that you created this community, because to me, it means there's support. Like there's people that will understand and empathize and really are there for each other. So I would love for you to talk about like what you're doing in the community, and like, you know, just the different types of people and programming that you're doing, because I think it's such a safe space for people to go.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, you know, like most businesses, when the pandemic happened, we had a lot of choices to make after being a live event here in New York City. And I really wanted to create a space that allowed for the true intimacy and connection that I have always felt in live events, but obviously have it be online because it needed to be safe and something that as many people as possible could access, especially during a pandemic. So I launched the Chronicon Community on October 28th, which is our 1 year anniversary for Chronicon. And it is a monthly membership, and you know, it's $25 a month, and you get so much in that. If you imagine even just one online event, you're spending maybe 20 to 30 bucks, maybe even more for an online event. This is $25 a month, but you get an event every single week. So we just had an event. Yeah, we had one this afternoon, Chronic Connecting, all connecting with all the members, which was so beautiful. And it's everyone from someone who was just diagnosed that is honestly intimidated to be there, doesn't even know, like, is it okay that I'm here? What is this? I don't understand. And is greeted with so much love, so much understanding, so much like, yes, show up the way that you need to show up and we will love you through it. To someone who might have been diagnosed, you know, at birth, or someone who might have been diagnosed in early childhood, like myself, who is super comfortable and well-versed in what it's like to live with a chronic illness. So there are all different types of conditions. As I just mentioned, it's anything that has persistent symptoms for over 3 months. So there's a lot that's there. And we also welcome allies to the community. So let's say you have a loved one that has a chronic illness and you want to understand their experience more. You're absolutely welcome. And even practitioners, doctors, you know, things like that might want to be connected to the community as well. And then we have content every single day. So between workshops every single week, and then content every single day, there's so much to choose from. And I think the thing that makes our community really special is that we're a community of people who also have chronic illnesses, right? So it's not about shaming someone because they can't show up to something, or you have to show up. Even I had to start telling people, if you show up and you can't put your camera on, like we had someone going through surgery and she was like, I just got out of surgery. I don't feel safe or comfortable putting the camera on. I'm like, great, come. Even if you don't want to speak, just use the chat, keep your camera off, do you. Do what makes you feel the most supported and the healthiest and the safest. So it's really about that. It's coming from that place and really allowing people to show up the way that they need to in the healthiest and safest way possible. And yeah, it's just everyone is so kind and so nice. And there's really nothing like this for those people living with chronic illness. It's usually very depressing, very much like trauma dumping, and oh my God, this is so hard. And there is definitely times when someone is having a flare-up that we'll talk about it. But it's a focus on celebrating our lives in spite of the fact that we live through pain or we might be going through something challenging.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And like what I like is like the safeness, the safe community. And like what I know about you is you've been doing events and building community for years. Like for years, like you've had amazing events in New York and online. So you're such a pro at this, and you're such a connector too. You bring the right people together. And that's what like I love about you too, because you do curate like the right people and you make it safe, because you've also lived through it. So let's talk about, and I know a lot of this stuff about you, but like the times, you know, what has helped you get through those tough times, right? With the chronic, like tough times, but then a chronic illness on top of it. What are some kind of go-to, whether it's like rituals or things that just helped you throughout the years that, you know, just helped you navigate through life?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to turn to. I feel like for me, a spiritual practice has always been a really big part of my life. And That's not a religious thing. It's just having a center that's sort of connected to something greater than me. That's always really helped me. It's kind of the thing that I go to when nothing else makes sense, when like the world isn't making sense, or my health isn't making sense, or maybe my friendships at the time aren't making sense, or whatever, even work maybe isn't making sense for some reason. And I find that that spiritual center always makes sense, even if I'm going through a challenging time. So finding ways to connect with that part of myself, whether it's through journaling or a prayer, or, you know, even just listening to spiritual music that gets me connected to myself, is really helpful. So trying all of those things for sure. And then I will say, like, even before I launched the Chronicon community, what I would always say when people asked me what helps me, it would be community. You know, so like I never had like one place to go where it was like this accessible and this sort of supportive in this huge way. But I had people, like I would call you, or I would call another friend, and having that sort of muscle that you've built that allows you to say, okay, I'm going through a really hard time. I don't need to go through this myself. I don't need to suffer on my own in silence. What can I do to access, you know, support in other ways? And a lot of times that was me just calling a friend and saying, I'm really having a hard time. Like, what can I do? Or what do you think? Or can you just like give me a virtual hug? So now obviously in the Chronicon community, we have, you know, over 100 people that are going to be able to do that, and you can connect with them. But I do find that whether it's joining that community or just in your own life, like finding those people that don't gaslight you, that don't make you work extra hard to understand, to be able to feel understood, you know, all of those different aspects, I think that just makes all of the difference. It really does.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, because a lot of people, I know for me, it's like sometimes it's hard to ask for help and ask for support. Yeah. And we're still like, especially like high performers and overachievers and all of those types of people, we got it. You know, it's like, oh, I got it. Like, I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to, you know, the support. Like, am I going to? So I think that's so good, because we all need support. We all need help at some point. Yeah. And it's okay to ask. Like, it's okay to get, you know, support. And just being in a community. I know environment is everything, you know, whether it's your up leveling or you just want some love, like community is so important. It's like the number one thing I think that I attribute my success, and even like my peace of mind to, you know, because when you're in a supportive, like-minded people, like type of community, it's so important.
I know. Right? And a lot of people, we had this chronic connecting event today that I was telling you about, and a lot of people in there reiterated that, you know, like someone was saying, a few people were saying, a lot of times they just tell people, I'm fine. I mean, everything's horrible right now. My body hurts really bad, but like, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. And it's, especially as, you know, high performing people, I live in New York City, right? Like you're, you know, doing this work every single day, coaching women in this work every single day. It's just, there is a level of excellence or a level of performance that we're both really committed to. And I think a lot of people are. And so it can be really hard to be like, oh my God, I'm not fine. Like, you know, and just kind of let yourself not fall apart in a way where you're dumping or you're exhausting people, but just allow yourself to unravel enough to say, can I have a virtual hug? Or like, hey, this, you know, my arthritis pain is really bothering me today. Can you just tell me, like, what did you do when you were in pain? Like, how can I, you know, what are some fun movies that I can watch because I'm having a bad flare day or whatever? And you don't have to do more labor to try to get someone to understand you when you're in a community that gets it, which is so nice. That's something I hear all the time, is that, you know, the community members in Chronicon will share about what they're going through, and they'll just be like, it's so nice that I can tell you the story and not have to add like 2 hours of explanation on top of it, you know? Yeah. So yeah, it makes a huge difference.
That's amazing. So where do you see this work going, like in the next couple of years? Like, what is your overall vision? Because I know you have like big, like, and you're already doing it, but like really big plans, because like the advocate of this work is so important, and there's so many people that are affected by this.
Yeah, I mean, I always say, like, I'm not as attached to how we get there, but I know what I want for us. And what I'll say that I want for us is I want a global shift for those living with a chronic illness. And what I mean by that is, you know, sort of what I was saying before about how we're often put in an othered box, or we're kind of tossed to the side. A lot of times, you know, I think about this a lot with like the curvy movement. And I say this all the time, where it's like a long time ago, it feels like now, though it probably wasn't even that long ago, you know, people would look at curvy, especially women, and say, oh, you're just curvy. You know, you don't care what you look like on your wedding day or in a, you know, on a date, or they wouldn't even like think of them as whole people who have beautiful talents and like to go to school and are incredibly smart and doctors and all of these things, right? They would just sort of put them in this curvy box and then toss them to the side. And there was a time when curvy people revolted and said, not only is that not true, but you're so missing how powerful we are. You're so missing how much we have to offer and how much we could be collaborating and creating together. And lo and behold, now there's a multi-billion-dollar curvy industry, right? And so when I think of those living with a chronic illness, I'm just sitting here like, oh, just you wait. All of you who have been putting us in a box, assuming that we don't care about dating, assuming that we don't have anything going on except for being sick, assuming all of these things about us, just you wait. I'm ready for the multi-billion-dollar industry that's going to be created just for us. You know, and I don't have to start the industry. I don't even need them. Like, that's not what it's about, but we deserve to have that industry to be created. And that's what I'm really committed to.
Yes, I love that. And you're so right. And now in my opinion, it's like the curvy conversation is still going on, but you see this like, well, I've seen a shift. Because I remember that when like CurvyCon first came out, and then now women, like now all the like the bigger companies are like, now it's embraced, you know, and there's certain areas where it's not, but I think it's more common and like well known because there's so many people talking about it.
Yeah. And I see people in the comments being like, yes, like exactly. Right. And so that's why like sometimes my work with Chronicon feels like I'm sort of trying to steer a ship in a direction that it isn't used to being, you know, steered in, like, you know, like the membership and asking people to sow into this work and invest in community in this way. That is not something when we are othered and thrown in a box, like we are sick and all we have is our health and that's it, or all we are is our illness and that's it. It takes something for us as individuals to say, no, I'm actually so much more than this. And not only am I going to show you that, I'm going to invest in showing you that. I'm going to show up for the space and I'm going to create relationships and allow myself to thrive and all of that stuff. So it's, you know, it's a reprogramming that I think is a huge part of the work that we're doing at Chronicon.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm so excited. So any kind of like other thoughts you want to bring to people and individuals that may be struggling like right now? Because listen, 2020, right? We had a lot going on.
Yeah.
And even now, right? With everything, the vaccines coming out, all of that. What would be like kind of some wisdom or things that you have seen that have helped others or have helped you throughout this time?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is like, and I'm even working through this myself, like, you know, it's okay not to be, I think there's a part of this pandemic that we're at right now where it's almost like we've been doing it for so long that there's a part of us that that's normalizing it, you know, and it's just like, well, I should be able to get up and just like do 1,000 things and like mass produce and do all this stuff. And, you know, some days I can get up and do 100 things and that's fine. But there's a level of collective trauma that we have all gone through, that we are still going through. And especially if you're dealing with a chronic illness, your body is always going through so much. Even if you're in remission and you're okay, there are things happening with your body that you might not even totally be aware of. And so that softening and like that practice of, you know, being okay with the fact that you're not at 150% all the time. And this is like literally what I'm telling myself, you know, in the process, because I'm a New Yorker, I'm an Aries, I'm an entrepreneur. Like I love to produce and create. I'm also a generator in human design, you know, language. So like I just go, 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 go. So when my generator battery runs out, I feel a loss of sense of self. I feel really disconnected or discombobulated. I don't really know what's going on. So it's been a really big, you know, training for me. And I think that's true for a lot of people right now, that if your battery is low, it doesn't mean that you failed or that you are broken or that there's something wrong with you. It's just a lot right now. And the fact that you've been able to do as much as you have with as much going on as there has been is beautiful and great. But giving yourself grace is so, so, so important.
Yeah, grace, surrender, like ease, and like not beating yourself up. I know that's what I do. It's like, oh, like even if I don't get to my to-do list, it's like, Kelly, like what, you know, come on, you have to do this. Like I'm feeling like under the weather and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm just allowing it to be. And I think what you brought up is so important. Like it's the physicalness of it, but it's also mental. Like there's that mental, like mind-body connection that's really important.
Yeah, I've been noticing that for sure. Like, I think a part of that, you know, generating, pushing, all of that is, it's just not allowing my brain to take a break. And I think the fact that we're like, I mean, you know, both of us are in our homes, you know, we're not essential workers on the front lines, thank God. And we're so grateful to the people that are doing that work, but we are in our homes and there's still a challenge in that, right? It's like, I am eating, sleeping, talking, hanging out on Zoom, you know, or Instagram or whatever. And I'm working and I'm creating and I'm this and I'm that and I'm cooking and I'm things. I live in Manhattan. I live in a small enough apartment. It's just, you know, it's a 1-bedroom, right? So there's this sense of just being on all the time that really isn't allowing for our minds to take that break and to unplug and to unwind. And now we have, you know, Clubhouse, which is like a whole other
oh my gosh
animal. So it's an animal. It's an animal. So yeah, for sure.
And I love it. So yeah, Boho Nuvo said we must listen to our bodies, especially now, so much energy shifting. Yeah. And I think this is what we're talking about is like, sometimes we get so caught up, like even with Clubhouse, we're like, for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, Clubhouse, I have to be in all the rooms, right? And it's like, your mind is, well, my mind is constantly going. And I'm like, okay, how am I really feeling? Like I've been on Clubhouse, like I will admit it. I've been on Clubhouse at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, Kelly, what are you doing? Like,
me too.
Right. But it's like, and it's like, okay, sometimes, you know, it's, I plan for that. And then sometimes you just get sucked in and you don't realize. And it's like, wow, like, it can be, and not even with Clubhouse, like with other things, like you maybe work too much and you don't listen to your body and, or your mind. Like, so I think it's so important, like you said, is like the grace and surrender. What do you do to recharge? Like when you find yourself in those moments of like, either you're like, wow, I really pushed really hard. I mean, you had an amazing like couple last month really of like so much coming out like in the media and everything. But in those times of kind of like overwork, overwhelm, I know you said prayer. I know you said like surrendering, like anything else that helps you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a newer thing, but I would say, you know, movement has always been a challenge for me, especially with my arthritis. But I would say in the last like month and a half, I did reach the pandemic wall like so many people. And I was like, okay, every time I get tired, I just watch TV or like do something in front of a screen or go on Clubhouse. I got to switch it up a little bit. And I started walking in my apartment, which is so silly to say, but in this in this pandemic era, it's, you know, kind of normal. And I was on the phone with a girlfriend one night and I walked like 7,000 steps in my apartment because I was just like in it, you know, and, that's become a habit for me now. I try to get to 7,000 steps on the daily. I do it about 4 or 5 times a week. And, you know, sometimes get to 10 or 11,000 because I'm just like, and the point in sharing that is that it's given me something to get in my body, first of all, which is actually, it does help me recharge. And it forces me to not be sitting like either in this spot at my desk or, you know, on my couch or whatever. And it also like, I'm not looking at a screen when I do that. You know, I'm like, even if I'm on the phone, I'm on a speaker phone and I'm like not looking at it and I'm, you know, walking and talking kind of thing.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder if my neighbors can see me because I'm like, oh God, that's kind of embarrassing, but whatever. But that's been really great. And I think what's important about that is that even with the fact that movement is challenging and it doesn't come that easily for me to incorporate it into my life, I'm really committed to finding ways to move and to get into my body that feels safe and comfortable for me and, you know, my chronic conditions, and not trying to fit a mold or what someone else thinks that I should do. So I think that's also important.
I love that. So any kind of last tips? I mean, everyone should check out the community. It's such a safe, inclusive space. And the women that you have, and do you have men in there as well?
Yes, we get asked that question a lot. Yeah, men are far and few between. I'm not going to lie. It's mostly women, but men absolutely invited, non-binary folks. Everyone is invited. We welcome everyone.
Amazing. So any last tips that you, let me see, there's a question in here. Did you, let's see, self-care involving.
Did you say arthritis? Yes, I did say arthritis. Yeah, I have psoriatic arthritis.
Yeah.
The walking is great.
So any kind of last tips that you want to share, and then just tell us a little bit more about the community, anything you have going on in the next like couple months with it.
Yeah, well, I would say just lastly, you know, all of this self-care stuff and, you know, figuring out how to take care of yourself is really a personal journey. While you can get inspired by, you know, things that you're doing or things that we're sharing on Chronicon, it's really about taking time to get to know what you personally need. And I think that's a huge part of it. So spending time journaling and getting connected to your inner self is just like the first step to figuring that out a lot of times. So I recommend that. And then in terms of the community, you know, in the link in our bio at Chronicon Official, we have the link to the community, or you can just go straight to the chroniconcommunity.com. And you get a week free when you join, which is so great. So you can come, you can try it out. That's our gift to you for being a part of it. And next week we have a really big event, and it's titled What Advocacy Looks Like in Real Life. And it's with Dr. Akila Kadei. We have an amazing, we have this woman, Carolina, who's gonna be talking to us about advocacy. We also have a meditation teacher, and we have a musician coming and singing for us. So those events happen once a month. And then we have events like The Business of Being You, where we teach people how to be your own advocate and how to get paid to be an advocate, which a lot of people are really obsessed with, which I love. And also have events called Chronically Beautiful workshops that we do every month, where we partner with a beauty brand or a skincare expert and talk about ways to pamper and love your skin and your body and your beauty routine so that you can just like have some fun, you know, like those are some of my favorite events, the Chronically Beautiful ones, because the last one we did facials, and the partner actually sent everyone skincare samples, like who did RSVP'd. It was so much fun. We have so many things like that lined up. So it's just a really beautiful, safe place. And the last thing I want to say about it is I found that you really have to be ready. Like you really have to be ready to want to thrive and have community around your health and around your life. And I'm excited about that because the people that are ready, even if they're timid, even if they're nervous, that's fine, you know, come anyway. But those people that are ready and up for it have gotten so much out of it. So join and sign up for an event. It's all included in your membership. And yeah, I'm excited to meet some of you.
Yeah, and you did recently like a brand partnership. You were like amazing. This woman is amazing at like connections and collaborations. You've gotten so much brand sponsorship just from a business perspective. So yes, it's a safe community. Yes, it's like healing and all of that, and such a support system. And I will say, like, you were such a like talented business mind, just what you've created in the past like 10, 11 years from a business perspective. So like you're getting the intimacy of being around you and being in the community of like-minded others, but also like your zone of genius, you know, your leadership. So that's what I always tell people, like, yes, it's 100% the community, and it's also about like the leader, you know, of being like
I appreciate
you have
that so much. And we have Nicole, who's in our comments, Pretty Girls Get Sick. She's one of our beautiful members. She's agreeing with you. So I appreciate that, Kelly Lynn.
Yeah. So it's like, it's all around, you know, it's all around. So you do like, whenever you want to follow or, you know, be part of something, like that's awesome, you know? So
yes. And those people who are in the comments that saying that they want to get involved, come, you know, sign up at thechroniconcommunity.com. I welcome everyone. Check your DMs in the community when you sign up, because it's actually me, and, you know, it's not a robot. But yeah, come and join and come to the workshops. And I love you too, Nicole. And I love you, KL. I'm so glad that we got to do this. Like, you're just such a light in my life, and you have been with me through some of the hardest moments in my life. And you also inspire me every day with what you've built with your career and the way that you support women and in thriving in their business and owning their power and just everything. We could have a love fest for like hours between.
We do. Yeah, we've been through like 11 plus
everything.
Years of, ups and downs. It's been interesting and so beautiful. Like it's like like it's
it's family.
Like I love you. Yeah, amazing. So okay, so guys, check out Chronicon, check out Nitika. We're so glad that you're tuned in live and watching the replay. Let us know, like, you know, a takeaway, you know, from this. We would love to hear you, and stay connected with Nitika. Join the community. And Nitika, thank you so much. Love you so much. And,
thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'll call you later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
all right,
love
bye,
you.
loves.
Bye, honey.